So when you buy a software, what do? You use it a bunch to show that you didn't waste money. But if you do problem solution first, then you will be much more strategic. So a lot of people want AI video. And I just go, well, how many videos did you make last year? 0? Maybe you don't need AI video. Maybe that's not going to solve the problem. So start with that. So I would say, what is the thing you do at work that you hate? Let's solve that with AI first. Whatever the thing you do every week. So for me, it's like editing my books or fixing grammar or creating show notes for my podcast. Those are the things I hate the most.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am really excited to have Jonathan of ChatGPT Profits, a book everybody should be reading. You have also written over 300 books as a celebrity ghostwriter. And I'm really excited to hear about how you turned being fired during a blizzard into a thriving online business. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background before you turned into a ghostwriter and an AI expert. What was it that you were doing that then, led you to being fired and deciding to serve no master?
Yeah, I was in education for a long time, teaching around the world, working my way up from teaching kindergarten all the way to teaching in postgraduate. So I'd been across the whole spectrum, and you always think that like an entrepreneur is someone who just knows, right? They go to entrepreneur classes, their parents are entrepreneurs. You don't really think that you can be an entrepreneur. I certainly never thought I could be an entrepreneur. But always along the way, I was starting side businesses and trying different ideas, but I never took them seriously. Even though I would launch a business and run it for a few years, I just always thought of it as like kind of filler. And then I reached the peak of my career running a multi-million-dollar project in one of the top 20 universities in America by the time I was 30, and I hated it. Once you get to a certain level, it's all politics, it's all passive aggressivism, it's all this gamesmanship, and you get into like people complain about really weird things. So the position I had running this department, someone else had turned it down. And she would come by my office all the time and complain about things. She was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they gave you a new chair. And I was like, well, they didn't give me a new chair. The office had no chair. So it went from 0 to 1 chairs, not from old to new chairs, which is very different. And then you get a laptop or a computer with a new job because there was no laptop in the office because it was a new position. And then they complained about that. And then at one point, because I was using the computer all day long for my job, I asked for a mouse because they were making me use the little trackpad. And then that became a whole thing. So you don't realize what it's like until you need to be careful what you wish for. So I was head of this department, and there was nowhere, my career peaked. There was nowhere further to go except for waiting for my boss to pass away because she was not going to give up her job any other way. And I didn't like it. There's a lot of, especially at the university level, you have to do a lot of make work. It's very similar to government work. You just have to make it seem like you're doing something, and then they never give you enough work to fill the time. So you're just filled with massive boredom. And when it just didn't work out, they let me go. And within, I think 3 months, I was making more than my boss. Within 6 months, I was making more than her boss. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like they thought they were, ending my career, but they're actually starting it. So it was the best thing that ever happened, because often we won't take the big step unless someone forces us to, because we chase security or comfort, even at the cost of our dreams or our freedoms.
Yeah. And that's something that I hear over and over again. So many people, as you mentioned, if you aren't born into entrepreneurship, you don't realize that that's an avenue open to you necessarily. I'm a professor at a university, but I'm part-time, so I don't have to deal with all of the politics and minutia that you had to deal with in your career. But it was also something that I didn't think was open to me, and it's something I really love doing. So I think it's really interesting. And you weren't even mid-career; you were at the top of your career. You were still very young compared to most people who have this epiphany that, oh, this isn't really the thing that I want to be doing the rest of my life. So what was it that you started doing when you left this career that propelled you to, the stratosphere as far as income?
Yeah, I immediately got into like online services. So I started selling SEO services way back in 2010. So people were still figuring out search engine optimization. It was kind of wide open, and there were just so many terrible websites or people that could not get any attention online. So this was before. Now it's all about social media, kind of goes through different phases, but it was really hard to get attention. And I would help small companies to start to just really grow their audience in the right place. So I really focused on local businesses. This is in Nashville, Tennessee. So I would help companies in Nashville to be the number one for Nashville Construction Company or Nashville Limousine Company or Nashville Doctor or Nashville Dentist. And I did that for quite a while to really launch my career. And then I went from doing that to teaching other people how to do it. And that's when I hit that next level where you really have no limits to your scalability. Because when you run a service-based company, you can only service a certain number of clients yourself. So then you have to scale by either outsourcing or by building a team. And both of those are difficult. That's completely different business, right? Once you're managing or outsourcing, you're managing as opposed to doing, but otherwise you can't acquire more clients. And the other option, once you start teaching though, I can teach 5 people or 5,000 people. It costs the same amount of time. So that's really where I found infinite scalability. And that's why I shifted into building programs, building training courses. And while all this was happening, a really big company called me and asked if I would write a book for them. So I had originally gotten famous. I started a blog about my dating life. I didn't know other people could see your blogs. So I started my blog a few years earlier. So I'd written a lot of really personal stuff about how bad I was at dating and all my misadventures. And it got really, 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 it was the number one search result for get a girlfriend. So everyone who typed in get a girlfriend, which is a very popular search term for guys, would see my blog, which I didn't know wasn't targeting that keyword, about how my eternal struggle to get a girlfriend. So I became really well known for that. And then I wrote this book for women on how to get your boyfriend to propose, which was a massive success. Did several $1,000,000 in sales. I didn't get all that. I just get a percentage, but a pretty nice one. And I was like, whoa, this is an amazing world. And that was the first book I wrote after my dissertation.
Wow. How amazing that you'd already been working on SEO, you'd worked on lead gen, but you didn't realize that your own blog would propel you into this whole other area of business and being able to ghostwrite and monetize in other ways and on topics that everybody wants to know about. So who hasn't had trouble with their dating life, right? Or marriage or any of those personal relationship issues?
Yeah, the book still sells. Like I still get royalties, which is really nice. It's one of those things that's just a perpetual topic. And a lot of the other stuff changes, like, Tinder wasn't around and Bumble. So it wasn't as much app-based. Like that stuff has changed. Some of the dynamics back then, it was like Plenty of Fish or OkCupid. So it was a little more rudimentary as far as online dating. So it was mostly in-person stuff, but the concepts, especially once you're in a relationship, are pretty universal. So it really kind of showed me that if you solve a real problem and you can find real opportunity. And I also just learned a lot about like men and women don't see dating the same way. Men see it as a moment. Like I'm single now, I have a girlfriend, I'm done. I'll never read another book on dating. Mission accomplished. Whereas women see relationships as a river, so they see it as a journey. So that's why women will buy books, how to find a guy, how to keep a guy, how to know if your guy is cheating, how to get your guy to propose, how to plan the perfect wedding, how to keep they invest in maintenance, which is much wiser because obviously relationships there are more moving parts. Like it doesn't end. Like you're not done with all the work the moment you start dating or the moment you get married. Like I'm married with 5 kids. The hard work starts when you get married.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the first book that this company asked you to write about?
Yeah, it was called Girl Gets Ring. And I wanted to call it The Ring Magnet. And they said that sounds a little too Lord of the Ringsy, which was the idea of you're in a relationship, and I still see this is bigger now. So there's a new thing now called a situationship. This didn't exist. This term didn't exist when I was writing this book. Back then it was called friends with benefits, or you're in a relationship and you get stuck at some stage. There's so many women who get stuck and you're engaged, but you never set a date. And I've met women who've been engaged for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or you're just have a boyfriend, but you can never transition to the next phase of the relationship. So the book was really about how to solve this very particular problem, which was how to make him want to go to the next phase of commitment. So I wrote it from a lot of my experience. And then I had another co-writer who had written a really famous book called The Magic of Making Up. And that just it went gangbusters. Like I learned a lot about how book structure, how important it is to title your chapters in a way that's engaging. Like those things I was terrible at. He was like, how come the book is so good, but your chapter titles are so bad? And I was like, I don't know. But he showed me how to reorder the chapters. So I wrote like most of the book, and he wrote some really good sections, and he really helped me with the book. We worked through the book name together, which made a huge difference. Girl Gets Rings did really well because it's, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
More Than the Ring magnet does sound like a fantasy novel. And then the chapter titles just really pulled people in. So I saw that that's more copywriting than content writing. So I learned a lot about that. And then that began my journey, which led me writing for a lot of other really, really big companies. And then eventually moving into writing biographies and books for people that want to go on TED Talks or want to go on speaking from stage or kind of want to transition to other careers. So that's more of what I do now, but it all started with that book.
Amazing. Well, and then somewhere along the way, you also became an AI expert. You have a podcast that you've had before most people even had heard about AI.
Everyone has things they're good and bad at. We all want to be good at everything. And it's really hard to say the things you're good and bad at. So I try to be aware of my weaknesses and strengths. So I have a bunch of things that I don't understand. There's certain tools, like everyone loves Notion. It never makes sense to me. No matter how many times I try, with such a popular product, it doesn't make sense to my brain. And I cannot do Sudoku. So there's certain things I just cannot do. Like Sudoku, no matter how much I try. My niece and nephew had a kid's Sudoku book, which just had 4 squares instead of 9. I was like, I still can't figure it out. So it doesn't make sense to me, but AI makes sense to me. I always know what ChatGPT is going to do. So I've been using AI for a while, like lesser known tools when ChatGPT 3.5 came out and became really popular. And I saw so many tutorial videos where people would say, ChatGPT can do this, but it can't do that. And I would go, yes, it can. And they would say, it would take you 13 steps to do this. And I go, I can do it in 4. And I realized that all the people who were teaching AI were worse than me, like significantly worse. And I remember this was a video by someone who was a friend of mine who wrote this, like you can get ChatGPT to write like the outline for a book, but it can't do more than that. And I go, I bet I can get it to write a whole book, like a really good one. So I had it write a historical romance novel that was like really good story before anyone else was. And just to prove it, because I don't write in that, I said it would be cheating to write in a genre I already write in. So let me do a genre I don't write in to like push and really prove that I can do this. So when I saw that and the book was good, I realized that most people are really far behind me as far as the front end or the customer facing or the use part of AI. And then a lot of people say this thing, they say, learning AI is like learning a programming language. And I say, well, that's not easy. That's really hard. That's your metaphor for this? So first people say, AI is going to make your life easier. Everything's going to be easier. All you have to do is learn Esperanto. And then half people listening right now are like, what's Esperanto? And it's like, oh, it's the invented foreign language that's supposed to be super easy to learn, but no one remembers it because it didn't work out. So right? So you end up saying it's easy, then saying it's going to be hard, and which one is it? And a lot of the content out there about AI overcomplicates it because then it makes you seem smarter if prompting is really hard and it's like learning a foreign language. So then people have to pay you more because you know this secret esoteric language and you're casting runes, and now it feels like it's the dark ages and you can only do prayer in Latin. So if you don't know Latin, then you have to pay me extra for my secrets. And I don't like that approach. So that's why I became more and more prominent in this space by teaching much simpler methodologies and saying, yeah, if you just switch to asking questions, you don't have to learn any prompts. Bypass all of that. So that's really I got really well known and started to really establish myself in the AI space, is that I approach it from a completely different mindset. Instead of making it really hard and thinking of it as programming and assembling equations. So I wrote this like article on LinkedIn about 2 years ago called The Master Prompt, which is all you need to know is one ChatGPT prompt. And this works for any AI, which is, this is my goal. The first sentence is like, I want to write a blog about swimming. I want to learn how to run. And the second sentence is, what information do you need from me? ? What this does is it bypasses a bunch of the higher level training inside of the AI, which basically makes it give you bad answers and not tell you if you've made a mistake. It gives it permission to tell you what information it needs. So now you don't have to remember the 7 steps or any of those things. It will ask you for what it needs and then create the result. And from there, this solves the need to learn hard prompts, and it solves the garbage in, garbage out problem, which is even if you say something wrong or given a bad piece of information, now it will tell you. And it switches it into basically easy mode for you. You don't have to be smart anymore. You can misspell words and you can be silly and there's no more stress. So my prompting theory is actually the new version of ChatGPT, the version 1.0, that's based on what I wrote. So then that turned into a thing called chain of thought, which was a misinterpretation of my theory. Chain of thought says, if you give ChatGPT 10 steps, instead of saying write a blog, you tell it the 10 steps of like, here's the research, do the key research, then do this, then do this, then do this. You'll write a better blog post, which is true. But if you get anything wrong in any of your 10 steps, you won't find out for about 40 minutes until you're halfway through or most of the way through, because you've reintroduced the error of if I make a mistake, the entire house of cards collapse. So that's why I said, please, if you're going to do derivative works of mine, please don't bring back the problem I solved. So I invented the new methodology, which is ask ChatGPT to write the steps and then have it do the steps in order. And now it eliminates the mistake that I eliminated the first time. So that's what the new version does, where it says it's thinking. That's what I invented. And I'm sure other people have thought of it too. Like there's parallel thinking. I'm not the only one who ever thought of it, but that is like the core methodology I have, is like, stop making it hard. Stop reintroducing errors that I've solved. So that's a 3-sentence prompt instead of a 2-sentence prompt. Like that's it. I don't memorize hundreds of prompts or these really hard ways of doing it, because if you see it as cooperative instead of competitive, AI can be very easy. It's no longer scary.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of AI tools and how we can utilize them to make life easier, not to your point, think of this shiny new tool and then make it overcomplicated. So what are some of the things you said? A lot of the work that you do is still ghostwriting, writing books, and then you have this whole AI area as well. So I'd love to hear how they're connected. If you do use AI for any of, coming up with ideas, anything else, if they're completely separate parts of your business, and then what can somebody learn from you? Like, can somebody hire you to walk them through things for AI or build systems for them?
I do about 3 ghostwriting jobs a year, so I don't take a lot of them. I just take projects that are really interesting and exciting to me. And the last person did it was like, how much is you could write with AI? I was like, none. For what I charge, I'll write it. That's built into the pricing. What I will use it for is delivery of the rough draft. So normally before AI, when I write the rough draft, I would say, listen, there's going to be misspellings, there's going to be grammatical mistakes. That's part of the rough draft. That's why it's called a rough draft, because I'm not going to edit something and then you cut it out of the book. So then I'm not redoing something twice. You always get people that ignore that part and they go, this is full of misspellings. I'm like, yeah, look at read the email I sent to you. So I now will run the rough draft through ChatGPT to fix and I'll say, don't do editing, just fix grammar and spelling mistakes. Do not, and you have to be strict with it because it does always want to fix. And so you just have to say, just only fix the grammar and spelling. So that eliminates that from the process. So that does solve a problem for me, which is nice. And then the final edit for my own books, I'll use AI for that as well. But the key is to read what it's outputting. The mistake most people make is they'll pump in their book, let ChatGPT edit. They go, I guess it's fixed. And now it doesn't sound like you anymore. So you have to really watch it because it will drift, because a book is so long. There's a lot of opportunity for it to slide off course a little bit or to start adding its accent, its own words, which you don't want in there. So that sounds really AI-ish. Starts talking about landscapes all the time and realms, some of its favorite words. So that's the areas where I really use it for writing for my ghostwriting projects. The other thing is the way I write books is it's very similar to a Picasso. So they say that Picasso is like if you paint on a wine bottle, the painting, and then shatter it. So I reverse engineer that. So people will tell me their story in the pieces of the book, but it's out of order. It's at the wrong order. It's right order for their story, but it's the wrong order for a book. So then I break it into pieces, and I used to do it manually, reassemble them. Now sometimes I will brainstorm that part where I go, here's the sections I have. What do you think about moving these around? So I will brainstorm the chapter order with ChatGPT sometimes, not with every book, just with some of the books I work on, to kind of just with the chapter order, because that's such a game changer for a book. So I'll also use it for that part as far as brainstorming. For my own books, I'll use it a lot more extensively and for other areas, but that's what I do as far as that. And then my main business is I have a lot of businesses in the AI space. I have a B2C where I have courses that teach people how to use AI to accelerate their business. how to use a bunch of like AI software that I built, like a bunch of things in there that really help people how to use AI art to grow your business. So actually, someone just sent me a picture earlier today of someone else speaking at a conference about using AI to get more clicks to your thumbnail. And it's a picture of me on the screen. I was like, oh, that's cool. So a huge conference where I almost went. I was like, I don't travel very often. I have 5 kids, but it was cool that they were talking about something I taught. They used my picture and did mention me. I was like, oh, that's amazing. So I've done a lot in that space because a lot of AI art gets distracted by creativity and they don't think about usefulness, which is a lot of AI stuff. It's like, oh, this video is so interesting. I'm like, but would you watch it if so? I didn't say it's an AI video first. And then I help businesses with AI digital transformation, which is like figuring out what's possible, what's not possible. So my most common conversation, people say, I have no idea what AI can do, because most people who talk about AI online and most companies really, really expand the definition of what's possible and not possible and what's useful and not useful. So it's very murky for any end user. So the definition of AI has dramatically changed in the last 20 years and certainly in the last 2 years. Same thing as the definition of automation or the definition of IT. IT used to mean the person who fixes your computer when it doesn't work. Now IT means anyone who uses computers at all. So it could be the person who works in a server farm, maybe a person who works in hardware or software or front-end development or back-end. It all has been merged into IT. And the same thing is happening with AI where things are merging into it. So I say, make a list of everything you wish AI could solve, and I'll tell you which ones it can and which ones it can't. And then I help them figure out which tools to buy, which automations to buy, which tools not to buy. Because a lot of people are not super technical or not super cutting edge and don't care so much about the perfect prompt. What my business clients really want is a microwave. You put a frozen burrito in the microwave, you push a button and a hot burrito comes out, and they don't know what happened and they do not care. So I build a lot of custom machines. So I kind of, it's the same thing, the same thing I do with books where I can put the chapters in the perfect order, is that someone will describe a problem and I can break it down into the correct steps and then it becomes solvable. Whereas when you look at it as a big picture, it's unsolvable. It's too complicated. So every time I talk to somebody, I say, is it this, then this, then this, then this? Is this the steps? Is this the correct? And if I can figure that out, then I know I can fix it. So that's really the biggest part of what I do, is understanding what the problem is and saying, what's the start point and what's the end point, and kind of where are you now? Where do you wish you were and where are you stuck? A lot of people have, especially if your company's been around for more than 10 or 20 years, you have one piece of software you started using 15 years ago, another one you started using 3 years ago. There's a different one from we started using spreadsheets when those were really cutting edge and now those are not cutting edge, and you never switched to databases or SQL, or maybe you're supposed to pronounce it SQL. I know some people say I pronounce it wrong, but all these different ways of doing things, and it's really hard to get someone to switch a way of doing things over or to switch a platform over. So that there's this big question of, is it worth the hassle to do this or to do that? And sometimes it is yes, and sometimes it's no. So sometimes I've seen people will make multi-million-dollar mistakes pretty frequently. So I know of a massive project where a company basically built a very, very, very expensive chatbot for their customer service. Mm-hmm. And everyone asked it the same question, which is, hey, what's my account number? And they realized if they just put the account number at the top of the my account page, nobody used the bot anymore. So they did learn what the problem was, but they could have found it out probably for a lot less money, like by starting a little smaller. And I've also seen a lot of really crazy things happen in hardware where people buy a bunch of super expensive AI hardware that they do not need, or they think they need the biggest version. A lot of people will come to me and they say, oh, I know I need a vector database. I'm like, well, how much data do you have? And they'll say 50-page PDF. And I'm like, who told you that? That solves it. That's absolutely, for some of my clients, that's what they need. They have a massive amount of data. I was like, yeah, if you have millions of data points, but if you have a 50-page PDF, you don't even have to do anything. You just upload that to ChatGPT into a GPT. Like, you don't have to do anything. And you can train it really quickly. So, and then once I showed him that, like, this was just a friend of mine, massive success, but it often is there's a real tendency to overcomplicate, overspend, or kind of get lost in the rabbit hole right now with AI because you want the best. And I'm even seeing, it's an interesting time right now because a lot of big server companies invested in AI chips about a year ago, and that generation is now obsolete. So they now have like $50 million or $100 million of graphics cards that are the same. It's kind of like what happened was all the Bitcoin people sold their graphics cards to the AI people, and they're like, haha, We got out just in time because, Bitcoin mining is no longer popular. The money's not there anymore. It's now in the AI servers. And then now everyone goes, well, I don't want the AI, my AI running on a chip from 6 months ago. Gross. It has to run on a chip from 1 month ago. And you're like, well, why? And I just because I want it. So we are really pushing in a lot of ways. So mostly what I have clients with is going, here's the complexity. And there's the other thing I work a lot on is AI sabotage, which is if you tell your employees, we're going to replace you with AI, we're going to run an AI pilot program, guess what? The pilot program is going to fail. And I know that because when I was an employee, that's what I would have done.
Mm-hmm.
I would have made sure the robot that's going to replace me breaks. So and also we're seeing right now, people do not want to work from the office. So I see a lot of people who have these like Silicon Valley tech jobs. They work at those offices where you have like a 5-star chef and you get a massage and there's like a sadness room and a coloring room and like a pod for every emotion, which is amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. And they don't want to go into that office. And I was like, what? I've never had an office with like fair trade coffee and like curated chocolate bars, like all these amazing amenities. And people are like protesting outside the Amazon office, like, do not make us go in there. I do not want a massage before I work. Right. And it's like, if people don't want to go into that building and you have people coming into yours, like when I worked for a big tech company in my mid-20s, I worked really hard to get 6 promotions so I could get a window with a partial view of the handicap parking spaces and half of a tree. And I was like, this is amazing. I can see something that's alive.
Right.
So thought of like being in a building, we have all like, they give, oh, you want a bike? Here you go. Like that's so beyond what I have ever experienced. And most people, right? Most people have never worked in an office that's like that nice. And if people don't want to work from there, then imagine if you have workers wherever your office is, do not fire them because you will never replace them. So the shift to work from home has just become such a big thing. Now it's for many people, it's the most valuable benefit you can offer, which is like didn't exist a few years ago. People took a taste of it and now they like it, right? You become accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And I've been working from home for a long time, so I get it.
I work from home. I totally agree with you. And actually, I know that you are on an island in the South Pacific. So you really work from home. And I do think, yeah, there's this tendency for people to not want to go in the office. But then when we're thinking about AI replacing jobs, how does that play into this?
There are certain jobs that are very vulnerable to AI, but they're mostly at the bottom. So data entry, cold calling, these types of jobs where it's the video editors who will watch a long video and just pick shorter clips to repost to TikTok from podcasts. Those jobs are at risk to AI, but the higher level jobs and the more sophisticated things aren't going away. AI cannot do most of what people promise. I would never let an AI write an email and send it without someone reading it. Like, do not do that. So we still need human oversight. AI works best in cooperation with people. And that's really where the magic is. So I really focus on that. So rather than eliminating a position, you just want to move them into something else. So a lot of what companies are dealing with is, well, how do we handle people that work from home? How do we handle AI automation? How do we train people? How do we make sure they're doing the things we are? And there's this whole dark path that some companies go down, which is where they turn on everyone's webcams and then someone just watches them all day, like a 1980s horror movie. And I know people who that's what they do. They spend 8 hours a day watching other people on their webcams, that used to be the worst job you could have. Like that was the nightmare job. If you worked in security, the one who had to sit there and watch the screens, that was the worst job, not the best job. So it's strange that that's now a management job. And there are so many ways you can do it better with AI, as in you can, like I just hired 3 new people this week for my company and they said, what are the hours? And I said, oh, I don't care. This is a task-based position. I said, you'll get paid by the number of tasks you accomplished and this is the expected pace. You go faster, you're allowed to. So if you do it all in one day, yeah, I don't care. Nice. Right. And I'm not going to put a time tracker on your computer. I'm not going to watch screenshots of you. I'm not going to check your mouse movement. So it saves me a huge amount of my time for oversight by creating this structure, and then all the reports, they deliver the reports to an AI, which sends it to me. So you can solve management problems. A problem one of my friends had is that when he switched and brings in a salesperson, when you're a smaller company or you're the face of the company, bringing in someone else to do the sales calls can be very challenging. So he'll bring someone in and just trust them. And I said, well, and then it doesn't notice until the numbers are way down a month later or 2 months later because you don't want to listen to someone's calls. You don't have time for that. That's the whole point. So I built for him a machine that it listens to all the calls. At the end of the day, it sends him a report of wins and losses and says there were 10 calls, this many sales, this many not sales. And these are where the person went off course or like went against your policies, like things like that. Like they went off the structure of what you have. And we have a more advanced version that I built with a friend of mine that will say, here's like, you can use it to actually train your salespeople to do better. So we'll say, here, take each call and go, here's how it could have been better. And so they're continually getting the positive reinforcement. But that means you don't have to listen to the calls yourself. You still have them, but you have your finger on the pulse, but it takes you 3 minutes a day instead of 2 hours a day. And you don't have to, otherwise you either listen to the calls or pay someone else to listen to the calls, or you get the transcripts and you read them. And it just becomes, you can accidentally give yourself like so much management work that you can't do anything. And that's really where AI can help you.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're saying all of this because I think it's really important for people to see or hear tangible concepts of best use cases for AI, ways that you can integrate tools to help, but that it's also not going to replace human creativity and thought, at least at this point. So we just needed to replace the things that are menial tasks, not everything. One of the ways that I've been using it lately is using, a closed model of ChatGPT and using VoiceWave, I think it's called, to record. So that way I don't have to, if I'm like in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff, I can just look at some prompts, speak into my mic, it'll spit everything out, ask some clarifying questions, but then summarize everything for me really nicely. And for someone who also has ADHD, that can be really helpful in making sure I'm getting more work done in a timely fashion than if I start writing something and then I'm like distracted by all the other things I need to get done in a day.
Yeah, that's where AI can really shine, is like using it where you're weak, or it's very good at organizing data, remembering steps in a process, and analyzing. So most people think the best use of AI is creating social media posts or writing blog posts, which are the two worst cases, the two literally worst things you can do with AI. A lot of people say, oh, I want AI to handle all the answering comments for me. And I was like, well, that's going to kill your business. I think you'll be out of business within a year because people will warn you about your business in a comment. And if you don't see it, you might miss a really big deal. So sometimes you'll close a massive deal with someone who left a comment. Like sometimes it's like, it turns out it's the head of like your dream company you'd love to do a partnership with, and you missed it because you have an AI answer in the comments or something. And huge. And the thing is, the whole point of social media is to talk to people. When you eliminate that, a lot of people think the best use of AI is replacing human interaction. And that's the worst thing. You should use AI to allow you to have more human interaction. Don't use AI to write your emails. Use AI to sort your emails. So you can create all your own social media posts and then take a picture of your like stats. They're hard to interpret, and say, ChatGPT, here's a picture of all my stats for the past month, all my posts, all the results. What should I do for this month? And it will give you a plan based on your data to get much better results. Oh, the best time to post is this time of day. These are the 3 topics that did the best for you. So double down on this. People don't like when you write about that. No one cares. So switch topics to this. And that allows you to get really in less than a minute, right? And the thing that we're the worst at is analyzing our data because it's emotional. Is our favorite post might not be everyone else's favorite post. I learned a long time ago that just because I like a book I write doesn't mean anyone else will like. My favorite book I wrote that I think is the best book I wrote, my audience hates.
Really?
They hate it. Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
So, and the book that and that's part of the game. Like that's what they get to do. So the book I spent the most time on, the most complicated theory, the most research, they do not like. And then others of my books just do really, really well. But you don't have that control. Like nobody makes a movie, right? And then thinks people are going to hate this. You think everyone's going to love it. Like you don't publish it going, this is going to be terrible. And then you find out people hate it sometimes. And that's a hard lesson to learn, but that's the thing. Creativity is a democracy. People can decide they don't like your book, and you can't just go, well, actually it took me 6 months. They go, oh, it took you 6 months. Now I like the book. People do not care. Like you can say how much the movie cost or how hard it was to make. They go, well, you wasted your money because it still stinks. We think that the effort matters. People don't care if I write a book in 1 hour or in 6 years. They just care about the result, which is how much they enjoyed or how much it helped them. So the more we can add efficiencies, the more opportunities we have. Like the really great thing about AI is that you can test ideas quickly. So one of the big secrets of successful people is the frequency of good ideas. I've interviewed a lot of billionaires. Just when I always ask this question, I say, how many good ideas do you have per year? Some people say 2, most say 1. No one's ever said 3. So if you have 1 good idea per year, just the normal number, but you can only test 5 ideas per year, you're never going to find that idea. But if you use AI and you can test 1 idea per day, now you find that idea in 3 months instead of in 17 years. That's really the magic, is the fact that you can test little ideas faster and you can get to MVP, minimum viable product, with your different ideas faster. There's a little bit of murkiness with people bragging, oh, I wrote this software with AI in 1 day. And it's like, well, you wrote a minimum viable product. You wrote enough to test if it's a good or bad idea. That you can do. And that's fine, right? That's really useful, because the sooner you can find out you have a bad idea, the better. Because what happens is you fall in love with your idea. Like I watch a lot of these investing shows, and someone's like, we spent $200,000 on patents. And how many have you sold? We haven't sold any yet. It's like, well, uh-oh. It always means it's always you have a problem, because you didn't test the market first to see if an idea is a good idea. You went in protection instead of making sure it's a good idea. And that's the dangerous path. So testing a lot of ideas, testing if people want stuff, finding out earlier, because people will tell you they like something, but they'll never buy it. Like I had to learn less when I published my first book, which was hit number 2 in all of Amazon. So it was only behind 1 murder mystery book. And nonfiction never goes that high. And my mom was like, I'll pay you $10 to not have to read it. So you find out, like every author thinks their friends and family will read their book. They will not. They do not want to read your book. And I feel that way. People ask me to read their book all the time. And I'm always like, oh no. And it's almost always terrible. And then you're in this awkward situation. I do have one friend of mine who everyone was like, this guy's book is going to be terrible. And it was really good. And I was like, this threw me off. Because I was like, he's like, what is happening here? And his book was like really a surprise. But no one believed me. I was like, no, it really is good. I wouldn't make that up. I usually tell people their books are terrible. But every once in a while you do get a diamond in the rough, and you never know until you read the book, right? So AI can help you to come up with your outline, come with your product, come with your pitch quickly. And then people go, that's a terrible idea. And you find out before you become emotionally invested, so you don't spend forever trying to recapture the time you've lost, right? Because you end up like someone playing blackjack at 4 a.m. who's like, I'm just trying to get back to zero, because you found out in 3 hours instead of in 4 months. That's really the best thing about AI.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something we're going to see more and more of. And that actually brings us to your podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about the impetus for starting your podcast? Is it made for the, more common person who's still just trying to get information about AI, learn what tools to use, what you recommend, versus somebody who's in the AI space, enterprise level, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, I basically interview CTOs who are experiencing, the CEO comes in and goes, we need to implement AI right now. And then the CTO goes, well, what do you mean? And they go, I don't know, but do it. Very common, because everyone wants AI but doesn't know what it means. I interview a lot of business owners. They're going through transition to see how they're using in different sectors. Much more, I don't really interview AI founders, because all they want to do is talk about whatever their AI software is. And then I have to test it. And then when I test it and it's not good, then it's a very awkward podcast episode. I'm like, I want to ask about your software, because that's not good. So that's why it takes a bunch of time, and then you have an awkward episode. I'm not trying to do a gotcha podcast. The real focus is on usefulness for entrepreneurs. So everything I do, whether it's teaching AI or podcast interviews, runs through this usefulness filter. Like, is this useful for my audience? And that's why I don't talk about AI video very often. That's why I don't talk about a lot of tools. They're just not there yet. And they will be in a few years. I don't like AI cold calling. I hate that. Like, let's stop making the world a worse place. And everything that's unfortunately really interesting is a really bad use case. Like, I couldn't believe Apple's commercial about their new phone was a single man by himself in a park with no dog taking pictures of other people's dogs. And I was like, well, that guy's going to jail. Like, are you crazy? Like, you
Oh,
know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
what would you do if you, like, where's your dog? Oh, I don't have a dog. I just like taking pictures of other people's dogs to see what kind of dog it is. No, that's a horrible thing to do. Like, I don't know how that made it into a commercial. That just shows you that tech people don't sometimes know how the real world works. So the use case they demonstrated was, oh, if you see a restaurant, you could take a picture of the restaurant to see their menu. And I was like, you can already do that. You can also look in the window at the menu. Or then they show a concert poster and they take a picture of the concert poster to find out where it is. And I was like, there's no concert poster that doesn't list the venue. Like,
Exactly.
that's the entire purpose. If you make a poster without listing the venue, you're fired. Like, it's not someone having to search for a QR code or whatever. And then the third with the dog one was crazy. If I want to find out what kind of dog you have, I can just go, hey, what kind of dog is that? But they're like, now you never have to talk to another human again. And that's so silly, but that's what people are really interested in, unfortunately. So there's this inverse correlation between interestingness and usefulness. So I really try to show people that you can do very useful things to get more free time. So you can replace the boring parts of your job, the parts of your job that are repetitive, the parts of your job that you dread doing every week. And then you can spend more time with your family. You can work 3 days a week, but get 5 days worth of work done. That's really what I focus on in the podcast.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I'm going to be a new listener as of today. Jonathan, as we're doing this interview, it is almost 3 a.m. where you are. Is that a typical day for you? Because I imagine you have a lot of clients in the US and Europe and other places.
Normally, no. Today, for some reason, a bunch of people have wanted to do phone calls in the middle of the night with me. So like, but I went to bed and then got up for this call.
Oh,
And then I woke up to all these messages like, oh, we need to hop on the phone. And then I read their message. I was like, but you've already solved it. I'm
look.
not sure. So I did a call for this. So I sent someone a training video and then they called me and said, should I watch this? And I said, yes. That's why I recorded the video to show you what to do. And it's fine because people I work with are not technical and that's my whole job. So that's fine. It wasn't a big, then she goes, okay, now I get it. And then someone else was like, oh, I think I need to hop on the phone to do that. He goes, I think you just want, so sometimes when you're translating, so you talk to one person and then they're talking to their IT department. I was like, let me just talk directly to the IT guy. Then we'll just nerd talk to each other and solve it in 5 minutes. And that's what happened. He was like, oh, why are you trying to use this? It's non-secure. We could just use that. I go, because I didn't know you had that. Right? I didn't know that was your setup. So most people do not know the infrastructure of their email server, right? They don't know is it running Linux or is it running Windows Server? Like, why would you know that it doesn't matter? So that changes certain things. So that's the other type of thing. But no, mostly I do my business during the day. I do less and less direct time with customers, and I can do in the morning or night, so like 7 a.m. or 7 at night. And that's why I've hired a bunch of people to do the phones for me. I get so many phone calls per week about the business, which is great. So I brought on 3 people that are just, so that way I can just handle hundreds of inquiries per week. So my like lead generation method, which I didn't know was revolutionary, like people are blown away by it, just nice to people. So if you look at the lead generation messages you get on LinkedIn from like people that want to lead prospect you, they're either offensive or mean, almost 90% of them. And they're like, oh, you seem like a dummy. Do you want to start a franchise doing this? And it's like, what? Or, oh, I looked at your podcast. Too bad you don't have any listeners. I can fix that for you. And it's like, well, okay, let's not start by hurting my feelings. And I get those a lot. So I'm not talking about yours, I'm talking about mine. I get that. Or people will take a picture of your YouTube page and circle a lot of stuff in red to bring back all your high school bad memories.
I get a lot of those.
So,
So- And I'm like, yes, I know I need to work on the SEO, but time.
yeah. Or they say, that's the thing, is they start off by creating such a bad feeling that you're like, oh, great. I really want to get on the phone with someone who's going to insult me to start the conversation and tell me all the things I'm doing wrong. I don't want that. So when a friend of mine was asking me for advice about an article he'd written the other day, and I was like, do you want me to be gentle or just cut to the chase? I'll ask that first, is I'll do whichever one you want because I don't want to hurt your feelings. And he was like, just go in hard. And I was like, okay, then it's going to be a 3-minute video instead of a 30-minute video. I can be faster. But that method of just being nice to people, like, so a lot of people say like, oh, what if you find out someone's not a good customer? And I was like, well, I don't want to cancel the meeting before, like that they've scheduled with me. That's very rude. So I will talk to them for 15 minutes. I talk to people all the time that would never hire my company because it turns out they're competing with me in some way.
Oh,
So I've found out that like a lot of IT companies are now doing AI services. A lot of cybersecurity companies are doing AI services. It's fine. Then what happens is, and this is an amazing thing, is sometimes the company will go, hey, we just got this project, but it's too small for us. Are you interested in it? And it's like a 6 or 7 figure project. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to step in and fill in the gap for you. Right. And that's one of the best ways to grow your business is surround yourself with companies that are bigger than yours.
nice.
So I was training the new people this week and they're like, so do we do sales? I was like, no, you don't have to. If people want to hire us, they'll just say it. So just ask them these questions, find out if they have this problem. If they don't, fine. If they do, then this is how we solve it. And sometimes it's just they need to work with a bigger company. And so I have partners that are much bigger companies that do a lot of development, or they need to work with a hardware company. We work with those. I say, oh, this is the right company for that. We don't fix that problem, but I know the right people because I talk to a lot of people. And I didn't know this was revolutionary. So, but then you look at like how many people say things on LinkedIn that are not very cool. Like, oh, I grew my LinkedIn business to this much money and I never responded to anyone's comments. And it's like, well, that's just like saying I got popular, but I'm also a horrible person inside. Like, why
Right.
don't keep it a secret? If you're a bad person, don't tell everyone. So I experience it all the time. People are like, oh, you after people talk to you, you should make them go through all these filters to say what their budget is and this and that. I was like, yeah, then you get on the phone and it's already confrontational. Like they already know it's a sales call. And I'm not interested in that. I don't want to have those conversations because you never know who's going to be a great customer and who's not, or who might send you an amazing referral until you talk to someone. You can just talk to me over 15 minutes. So that's my entire, like the way my business grows is just by talking to a lot of people, having 15-minute calls, having chats like this. So those have, because of the times and stuff, I was doing so many of those calls that I was able to do a lot of other stuff in the business.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought in other people. And then when I interviewed for the job, I was like, this sounds really easy. I was like, it is. You just have to be nice to people. And then the transcription, the AI will take care of the transcription, send me the notes. And if it's a potential customer, then I'll do a call with them. And if it's not, then we'll send them to the right thing. So that's really it. And that allows me to have more freedom. So I always look at whether it's built using a software, an automation or a tool or building a machine, how long will it take to build? What will it cost in time or resources? And then is the benefit greater than the cost? One of the things that AI people will do a lot is we'll spend 8 hours to build a machine that saves us 7 minutes a week. It's like it takes 100 years to recover that investment. So I do try to look at that first. And with this process, I was just like, well, I have a tendency to stay too long on my 15-minute calls. I'll stay for 30 minutes or 45 because I'm having a good time. And I was talking to my friend. I was like, the problem is the people who aren't customers, I still like them. I'm still having a good time learning something new and having great conversations. So it's like hard for me to cut the call off and all of that stuff because it's like I'm having a good time, but then I don't get other stuff done. So I'm shifting more and more to that. And then I'm going to moving towards I'll probably hire like a tech person to do some of the kind of more complicated development ideas that I have that are a little bit beyond my ability. And those are kind of the two limitations on scaling any business where you're servers based or customer facing. But most of the problems people bring me, 90% of it is me drawing out what the solution is. So like I created a new course teaching my audience teaching automation. And I said, it's not done inside the computer. I do it by hand. I draw out pictures by hand. So actually for the course, I had to draw them inside of a graphics program because I never do that. And I said, first of all, I break the program into pieces, then I figure out how to solve each little one, and then I figure out how to connect them to each other. And that's a drawing. So that 90% of the thing, the real skill is not inside of a computer. The tech stuff is kind of a commodity. There's plenty of people that can program front end, back end, full stack developers. There's tons of them out there. They're really good at once you know the problem, they can solve it. But figuring out the problem, that's a different skill. So that's really what I spend more and more of my time doing. And then I have like testing a lot of ideas or building. People come to me with really wild ideas that no one has ever asked before. So then I think, how could I build that? How can I reverse engineer this? So I'm working on one now where someone wants a chatbot that constantly updates based on they're constantly feeding it new information. And I was like, oh, no one's ever said that to me before, where they want to, it's like every time they have a conversation, they can feed the transcript so the AI keeps getting smarter, or more optimized. I said, okay, I have to build it a different way. It's doable. I just have to think about it, which is, are we going to let you continually push into it, or once a week we'll do an upload of that week's thing? So there's two ways of doing it. It's like another person, this was actually a really clever idea, said to me when I'm on my podcast, I want the AI to listen and do real time research and show me stuff on the screen like a producer would do. Kind of like someone like they call the producer, go, hey, Google that, right? I was like, that's very interesting. But most AIs, you have to push a button to send the prompt, right? You have to say, so you could do it, but you have to keep hitting the button. So passive listening does exist and has gotten very good in the medical field. So a lot of doctors use it when they're talking to a patient so they don't have to take notes and now they can talk to you again.
Mm-hmm.
So it does exist. But it doesn't, I don't know with those systems. I haven't fully tested. I know some people work at those companies. I don't know if those systems will automatically generate the patient notes, or you have to click a button to generate the notes from the conversation. So I don't know. You might still have to click a button. So kind of giving an AI unfettered ability to do something, it doesn't exist yet. No. So I was like, I haven't thought of how to solve that one. So people come in with really interesting ideas, like how can I build a machine that does this? How can I reverse engineer that? And a lot of times people do build a machine that's really too complicated. And they say, no, we worked on this for 2 years. And I go, well, that should have taken 3 weeks. And they overspent by a couple $1 million. They're like, I was like, so to my business partner about one project, I go, I must be missing something because this is a 3-week project that should have taken about $5,000 and it took them 2 years and several million.
Yikes.
And then I was like, let's do a phone call to see what I'm missing. And I wrote down, I like to do predictions. I wrote down what I think they did. And I wrote down the 7 steps and I was right about all 7. And I was like, oh boy, there's not a secret step. They just wasted a whole ton of money. It's like, there's this temptation with AI to be like, I need the best, I need the most expensive, I need whatever's the way of doing it. And people don't know that there's shortcuts or that you can just rent a server as opposed to building your own. So sometimes you want to build your own piece of tech. Like there's only, where I live, there's only one person in the whole country who builds computers. And this thing, I have my PCs behind me has so many LEDs on it because he builds gaming PCs.
Oh.
And he was what it look like. And I go, oh, I don't care. And he went wild on it. It has like 7 different fans with these bright, and it looks really cool. But like, I didn't think about that. And but I use it to test local models of AIs and to test like processes that you need a little more processing power for. But golly, people think they need, unfortunately, they always think I need the most expensive model. I actually mostly use the previous iteration of ChatGPT. I very rarely use the current model because I think it's too sassy.
Interesting.
Does too much talk back to me. And it's like, no, I don't need a lot of opinions. I am, because like I have an AI model that I trained on my personality, but we get into fights all the time because if you, right, the worst thing to meet is like your twin. And it's like, if you've ever seen, like you're at prom and a lady sees someone else wearing the same dress, they're not like, oh boy, twinsies. They're like, I hate you. And that's what happens with me with a twin. So that's why I know I did it really well. Like we're always fighting each other and I'm like, stop doing it. But I know he would do it because I would do it.
Yeah.
So that's how you know you've done a good job. You create your nemesis. So, but there's just this unfortunate tendency and there's a lot of confusion in the AI space to just overspend, overcomplicate, overwhelm yourself. And that's really what I'm constantly trying to help people to see, whether it's people that are starting out their business or accelerating their business, that you want to approach it from a problem solution perspective, which is what is the problem you want to solve, then find the tool, as opposed to finding the tool. Like if I go to the hardware store, I always buy something. Then I come home, I buy measuring tapes all the time because here it's so wet in the ocean that they rust out. So are constantly rusting out. So I'll buy a new one. And then I come home and my wife looks at me and I go, I got a lot of measuring to do. So I'm measuring the kids. I'm measuring our bed constantly to make sure. I'm like, what size is our bed? I need to double check. What size are our pillows before you order new pillowcases? Because you have to justify your purchase. So when you buy a software, what do? You use it a bunch to show that you didn't waste money. But if you do problem solution first, then you will be much more strategic. So a lot of people want AI video. And I just go, well, how many videos did you make last year? 0? Maybe you don't need AI video. Maybe that's not going to solve the problem. So start with that. So I always say, what is the thing you do at work that you hate? Let's solve that with AI first. Whatever the thing you do every week. So for me, it's like editing my books or fixing grammar or creating show notes for my podcast. Those are the things I hate the most. Or because it's just like, I don't like listening to my own voice. I keep thinking, when's my voice going to get deep? I know some people like their own voice. I don't trust them. So
Well,
I never want to hear my own voice. I always think I sound like a 13-year-old surfer. So,
no,
it's just in your own head, right? But it's just your own head. You always have that
right.
self belief, right? No one else hears what you hear. So I don't want to re-listen to myself. Like I've just finished a podcast. Re-listen. I used to do the show in my hand, right? I re-listen to the show and write my notes.
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
doing that.
Yeah.
Now it would
No,
drive me crazy.
that's,
Now,
yeah. That's something I use a lot of AI for is my post-production, creating the reels, the show notes, captions. You still have to tinker with them, but at least you have a starting product. Jonathan, I know it's really early in the morning for you. This has been a really great conversation. I love everything that you're doing, and you've given us a lot of great advice on how to rethink how we're using AI tools, what we really need. And you have a lot of great resources on your website, servenomaster.com, from your courses to your books to AI to your podcast and everything else about how to work with you, correct?
yeah, if you just go to the link in the show notes, you can see all the things I have. You can get a free copy of my book, ChatGPT Profits. You don't have to pay full price. You're obviously welcome to. I appreciate that. And I have a calculator I built that will show you based on your company size and what you're doing, how much you can increase your company's revenue using AI to see if it's a good fit for you. So all of that is there to kind of help you figure out, is this right for me or is it not right for me? Because it's not right for everyone.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really good tool. And I haven't heard anybody else doing that. So thank you for providing this service, for sharing your expertise, how you found your pivot point, and how you've continued to pour into not just helping other people, but you obviously have an inquisitive mind. You're always wanting to learn yourself and make things better. But then also your husband, you have 5 kids, so you have a busy life on top of everything else that you're doing. I always like to ask if you have a favorite quote, family motto, mantra, verse, words of wisdom that you live by that you'd like to share.
Yeah. So like our family motto is we only trust each other. So that's what I try to teach my kids. I was like, stop fighting each other because when you get older, no one else is going to care about you. So I have 3 sisters and like, we've had situations where like we have to really help each other. Like when one of my sisters was really sick, I went and took care of her kids while she got better. It was like because we're family. And then when my family and I was in the hospital, my sisters helped pay the hospital bill because me and all the kids couldn't work. We're all in the hospital, me and all of the kids. So your family will look out for you. And we sometimes, especially where kids spit on it and don't take it seriously and don't realize that like the younger sister that you take on all the time might be the one who you really need in a few years, right? So that's why I try to instill in my kids is that important thing. And also that as much as we pretend everyone's altruistic, people are going to look out for their families first. That's just a normal way we live. And that realizing that helps you understand the real structure of the world. So that's one of the things kind of from living in Asia that you become more aware of is that people really care about family outward as opposed to kind of country inward. It's just a different way of seeing it. It's a little more realistic. So that's really kind of our core family value is that we know that we're the ones we can rely on. And that's really kind of why that's my core value. That's why I spend as much time with my family. So that's why I have so many kids. I want to be around them.
I love it. Thank you for sharing everything. And thank you to everybody who's listening or watching this episode and learning more about the world of AI, of ghostwriting, writing books, getting a lot of great advice in a lot of different areas for your business and your life to propel you forward. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.